If you've been scrolling through endless Pilates reformer options, weighing a compact studio-grade machine against a full-size commercial unit, and you still feel stuck, this review should clear that up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I'm going to walk through why the Echelon Meridian might finally be the one that fits your space, budget, and workout style, and where it could fall short if you have different priorities. First, let's talk about the problem most beginners run into: the gap between looks good on a showroom floor and works for my living room. A lot of reformers promise smooth resistance and a sleek frame, but when you try to fold it away after a 45-minute session, the carriage sticks, the springs squeak, or the whole thing feels like a piece of gym equipment you can't actually live with. That's the risk I've seen in forums, and in the handful of detailed video unboxings people end up with a beautiful machine that becomes a decorative obstacle. The Meridian tries to bridge that divide. Its core claim is a smooth glide carriage system that operates quietly enough that you could be doing a flow on a Sunday morning while the kids are still in bed. In the real world, that quietness translates to fewer complaints from roommates and more flexibility in where you place the reformer. The resistance is described as fluid, and because it's driven by a set of linked springs rather than a digital motor, you get that classic Pilates feel. The tension builds gradually as you extend, and it eases back the same way you'd expect from a professional studio rig. Now, who should actually consider buying this? If you're a home practitioner who already knows the basics of Pilates and wants to add a reformer to your routine without dedicating an entire garage, the Meridian hits a sweet spot. Its footprint, roughly the size of a large treadmill, fits against a wall in a spare bedroom, a finished basement corner, or even a well-ventilated office space. The built-in tablet holder is a subtle but useful addition. It lets you stream a class or follow a YouTube tutorial without having to prop a phone on a makeshift stand. For people who rely on guided sessions, that convenience can be the difference between consistency and abandonment. If you're a serious athlete training for competitive gymnastics, or you run a boutique studio that needs to accommodate multiple clients back-to-back, the Meridian might feel a little light. It's commercial grade in the sense that the carriage rails are reinforced and the springs are calibrated for a range of body types, but it doesn't have the heavy-duty locking mechanisms you'd find on a 400-pound capacity reformer built for daily class use. In other words, you get a solid workout, but you probably won't want to push the machine to its absolute limits night after night. Let's get into the everyday experience. Setting it up is straightforward. You unpack the frame, attach the carriage, and lock the springs into their slots. The whole process takes about 10 minutes if you have a basic screwdriver and a clear space. Once assembled, the carriage slides along the rails with a buttery motion, and the resistance levels are adjusted by moving the spring plates, a tactile action that feels intuitive after a couple of reps. I've watched a few users transition from a matronly routine to full-body reformer work, and they consistently note that the smooth glide reduces the mental load of worrying about jerky movements. That lets them focus on alignment and breath, which is really what Pilates is about. One hidden trade-off shows up when you start using the machine for longer sessions, say an hour or more. Because the resistance comes from metal springs, the tension can feel soft toward the end of a series of high-intensity sets. The springs do warm up, and you may notice a slight loss of crispness after many repetitions. For most home users, this isn't a deal-breaker. It just means you might want to mix in a few mat or band exercises to keep the challenge up. If you're looking for a machine that can replace a full stack of equipment for a high-volume athlete, you'll probably notice that limitation more sharply. Another practical point is the storage solution. The Meridian folds down, but the carriage stays attached to the frame. That design choice keeps the springs from rattling loose, yet it also means the unit remains a bit taller than a pure foldaway model. In my experience, you'll still need a ceiling height of at least 8 feet to comfortably lie flat, so a low-ceiling apartment could be a problem. The tablet holder, while handy, can be a bit finicky if you use a larger screen. You might need to adjust the angle or use a protective case to avoid scratching the glass. From a value-for-money perspective, the Meridian sits in a mid-range price tier. You're paying more than a basic DIY reformer kit, but considerably less than a full-size commercial rig. What you get is the combination of a reliable glide system and a built-in media mount features that usually come as add-ons on cheaper models. The quiet operation.